Good morning, grown Black folks talk. The choose better edition, choose better, the mechanics of choosing better, John Morant edition, because that's a very difficult edition. I was listening to Shaquille O'Neal. There's a 3 minute video when he described John Morant's situation after hearing from Adam Silver about how he was shocked John Morant was back in the club the following night, went in one ear, went out the other. And I really thought about, okay, how is that possible? And Shaquille O'Neal actually explained it to everybody, even though I don't think he meant to do it quite this way. He talked about at some point, if the people around you are in the main not paying attention to what you need to do, you have to then recall a higher power. And I've never heard Shaquille O'Neal talk about God like that. So I'm like, ooh. He said, I know that people think I'm talking about God, but I'm really talking about my mom. I would sit and I would think as I matured, what would my mother's reaction be if I did this? He said a little bit later, my dad also told me what I wouldn't listen to, I would have to figure out the hard way. He then later said, as I got older and I had children, I realized that they represent me, but I also represent them. So I had to back up off a lot of stuff. He said, I was young and I did stupid things too. But I always had a reference mom, dad, children. And I thought, Shaquille O'Neal has a full descent line. He has moral, upstanding character in his upline. He has wisdom in his upline from mom and dad. John Morant doesn't have this. And even though John Morant has a daughter, that is not going to kick in for him because it wasn't put in the first place. Whereas in Shaquille O'Neal's case, and I probably should mention, since most of my subscribers are Black women, Shaquille O'Neal did not mention his ex-wife on this occasion, but he has said elsewhere in another short video, he's very good in short videos. He said, the loss of my marriage was my fault. My wife was finer than a mug. She gave me 3 children and was still finer than a mug. And it was my fault that I was out there doing other things because that was a problem with me. But when I was in that empty house, that big old house that he got from them, and she left and took the kids, he said that's when it hit me. Now that I've made this family, even though I've messed everything up, what I got to do now is still take care of this family that I made. So, in all aspects of the family, because Shaquille O'Neal got this from his parents, he was able to understand eventually how to then understand the loss of his marriage is his responsibility, and also recognize I still have a responsibility to my ex-wife, make sure she's good, and also my children to make sure they're good. This is my thing to take on. But see, he has a generational line that's closed. It doesn't have these gaps of responsibility in it. John Morant does not. Again, I'm not going to repeat all the stuff that his parents have been out here doing out, but I will say just generally that his mother does not have a good sense of her son being more than someone that she calls to solve problems for her that she need not get into. And his father is out here very concerned with living the same life his son is because there's a gap in him somewhere. So he has not matured, so he cannot help his son get there because he likes to hang out with the same friends of John Morant that are getting banned from stadiums for life because of their behavior. The same friends who were in the car when all the things with the guns happened. John Morant does not have responsible parentage, at least allegedly, according to the accounts that exist. So I also sat here and thought about this as a Christian and thought to myself, oh, okay, I learned something I didn't understand. For me, who has excellent parents still alive, to whom I can draw wisdom at 42, who had excellent grandparents. My grandmother lived to I was 25, and even though she had dementia the last several years, till 19, 20, 21, I could talk with her about young adult life as a Black woman in America, and even sometimes in snatches later than that. She was well enough to vote in the 2006, no, 2004 election. I walked her around the corner. They made her feel like a queen. I will always remember that. And they gave her my vote. I voted picture. Even then, sometimes she was still at snatches alert enough to be an example. Because I have that understanding God the Father as the grandest parent of all, since I had excellent grandfathers, an excellent father, and excellent parents, and excellent authority over me, I've talked about D. Manning Jackson. His wife was my mentor, first mentor into community service in a professional way. Sister Minnie Ruth Jackson lived into her hundreds. So because I have had that, there's a very good chance that, of course, as a teacher, what I do when I meet children that don't have it is I just extend it. If I were a parent, I would do exactly the same thing because I have it. I realize, and also it's easier for me to be a devout Christian because if everybody that you recognize as earthly authority did a good job, accepting God the Father is just a step up on that. It's not difficult. But as I was listening for Shaquille O'Neal, I realized for the first time in a visceral way why it is so much harder for people who have fraught relationships with their parents. It's like I've taught students that have what they call oppositional defiant disorder, but I recognize it's not that they're oppositionally defiant. It's just that they are in their humanity reacting to no one yet has proved that they love me enough for them to trust me, so I should pay attention to what they have to say. And what this basically works out to in adulthood is you can be told and even shown objectively the right manner to operate in, and you still may not because you've never been able to trust anyone to be an authority. And that also is going to make it very difficult for you to then deal with a God that has an entire book. And I'm not even speaking yet of the Bible yet, but it makes it very hard to be in institutional religion because, again, same issues, nobody modeled that. That makes it very difficult. Isn't it an excuse? No, because at some point, you have to, as an adult, you are absolutely responsible for yourself. And this is where we go to the title of this video. Most of us are living in this way. When better finds itself, but when better finds me and proves itself to me, then I'll choose better. But right now, I'm doing what's making my boat float right now. Natural, normal human behavior because people still need that gap filled. This is why people ruin their relationships waiting on someone to prove to them that they mean it. This is why black men talk about what do you bring to the table, forever needing women to jump hoops for them. Never works because a man who wants to lead has responsibility to be a good leader. If you don't feel it, you're never going to get what you want, ever, ever. If Shaquille O'Neal couldn't and got left, money doesn't make you a leader. Fame doesn't make you a leader. Nope. As long as you are looking for a woman to fill your table as a man, you will never have the woman that you need. It's just not going to happen. You will be able to use a bunch of women, but that emptiness is going to be there. I'm just that's just what it is because there's another problem that hasn't been solved. For a woman, actually, same thing. If you need some man to fill in the security that your father didn't, and that's basically as far as you get in terms of how you see the relationships, you're never going to get that either because that can't be filled that way. So, and people, and this is how we get into a codependent community that treats one another like chattel because people have all these unspoken deep needs that were not given to them. And then they look at every other situation there is to get it filled. They're still looking for a need that should have been filled when they were 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 10. That security they should have been given then. And see, this is why it's so much easier to work with children who are coming from these backgrounds than adults. Children have not made the mistakes that pile on when you make decisions based on lack, based on trauma. Children haven't made the mistakes. There's less wreckage and there's less ego dependent on the wreckage to work with. Whereas adults, not only are you dealing with the fact that that has not been filled, but you are also dealing with all the wreckage that is around it. And then you have to look at people are going to invest their ego in being right. So no matter how you try to reason with them, you now have to, they feel like their ego is being assaulted as well. This is how I realized I have been in grief in the spring because I had no way of knowing. I have taught and taught and taught and taught. But the issue goes to, do people have a comfortable enough relationship with authority to feel comfortable trusting God, who is further removed, at least apparently? Would that be true whether you put any God you can think of a name in there? It would still be true. It's not just a reference on Christianity. Now, this goes to the other side of this. See, from a human perspective, again, we tend to think when better finds me and proves itself to me, then I'll choose it. Not gonna work. Because if you are not already choosing it, it will pass you right by and you won't even see it. John Morant is basically doing the oldest Reading right now. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do. Shaquille O'Neal, Marcus Wiley, some others. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do. Even though objectively they are giving him good advice. He has not chosen it, so he cannot do it. In reality, the choose better John Morant edition has to do with the fact that until you choose to step out of the foolery, you will never step out of the foolery. And when you're an adult, it really means that you now have to go find a whole different kind of community. Healthy, non-codependent communities. Now that's a whole separate video, which I may do later on. And I'm telling you up front what my limitations are. Outside of Christ, I don't know what that would even look like. I can objectively take some things that we can look at out of there, but it's very difficult. Now, but I will say this. I'm not saying church. I can't speak on the churches of different races of people, but I've been black all my life. Most churches have wounded, codependent people in them just because of our history alone that feel like God failed them from slavery on back. Let's just keep it 100. I hear this quite often that God is still failing them and failing the people because we are the poorest people in the country. We're not absolutely the poorest, but per capita. That God is somehow still failing us and also is quite ignorant about what it is you're supposed to know. So if you put them, so people are going to act out their codependency and their trauma. I didn't say church, but healthy non-codependent community. If you didn't have that, you still have to find it. And see, this is why John Morant needs to be suspended for a significant period of time and somehow to be separated from this group of people. The other thing that makes this very hard for people to do is you may have to accept being alone and dealing with the voices inside your head and dealing with coming to terms with the basis in which other people failed you: grief, loss, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, 5 steps of grief. And then you also then have to confront that in yourself, the same 5 steps: grief, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, 5 steps still. You may have to be alone and actually go through the steps. Some people need to accept the fact that the thing that they're going to do to choose better is to cease, as the Bible says, cease from your own labors. For people who are very much people, for people who are highly codependent, this is extremely difficult. This is the step by which most people fall, that you may have to sit and discover who it is that you really are and what you really want. Shout out to Confidence with Love. I'm using her for AI, Agape Intelligence descriptors right now. Because see, the thing about it is, as a Christian, I can tell you who you are and what the offer is on the table, but you still have to decide whether you want it. I can tell you who you are and who you can be, but you still have to choose better before you'll choose better. John Morant is stuck tight, and so are many other people, for not understanding. People want to do what they're doing until better finds them, works its way through there, plows through there, convinces them that they should come out. It will never happen. As a Christian, I can tell you, God in Christ is going to make you a very fair eternal offer. You're not going to compete with whatever other foolery you want. If you're the top of the heap, you don't compete. And as far as I know, at least according to the scripture, any of you that are in disciplined religions know what I'm talking about. You could sit down and talk about Ahura Mazda, about Mazda of the Zoroastrians. You could talk to Vishnu in the Hindu religion. You could talk to Allah of the Muslim. Ain't no way in the world. Ain't no way in the world. Nope, not gonna do it because of who you talk to a Christian and a Jew about is Yeshua also Yahweh. You could have that same conversation, and for several thousand years, the majority of Jews will not budge on this. Because the understanding is if you are indeed God, you got plenty of people and you do not need any particular one at any particular time. No, no, no. You will be left in the foolery. People who have their lives together and who can go build something else tend to behave the same way. This is why the NBA will go right on. John Morant's replacement was just drafted 2 days ago. He's 23. Average NBA career is 3 years. He's been in the league a year and a half. He can be suspended for another one and be gone by 2025. And the NBA will go right on. The limitation of being human is to be finite and brief. So Again, I'm not going to leave you without solutions. Again, this is the Mechanics of Choosing Better, John Morant edition. John Morant is in a very unfortunate situation that many people share. If you did not have moral and wisdom in your authority line on earth, it makes it very, very difficult for you to see moral and wisdom lines above that. Shaquille O'Neal is right. For most people, if that higher power is not a parent or a grandparent, they're not going any further. I don't think theologically this is correct, but I can't hold Shaquille O'Neal to that standard. He represents the person in the flesh, understanding. So if you didn't have that, it's very, very difficult. Granted, or will you escape choosing the foolery because you didn't have it? No, because you're still responsible for your own life. So then you have to seek healthy, non-codependent community. Do you even know what that looks like right now? Maybe not. But here's the thing. Till you choose better, you will never have it because it will pass you right by every time. Again, normal human behavior. When better finds itself and proves itself to me, I'll then choose it. You'll never make it. It will pass you right by. But when you choose better, the first step on the line may be you have to sit with yourself and deal with all the people that lied to you, all the people that failed you, and then deal with all the lies you have accepted, and all the lies that you have told yourself. And you must go on a search for actual truth. And sometimes, if you remember your fairy tales, all these quests happened alone. And even as a Christian person who's been in church, and this is a different video, which I will do maybe later on today. Church is not necessarily going to be a healthy, non-codependent community. I have received more as a Christian in small fellowship and even sometimes on my walk with God alone. I haven't had a walking partner for a few years, a mortal walking partner for a few years because of COVID. Occasionally, I still walk with Sergeant Love, and occasionally, probably will start walking again with a friend of mine once a week, but just once. Because the things I'm able to do with God, the insights I'm able to receive, and the ability I have to literally follow the Spirit of God to where I shall be walking on a particular day with no one else telling me where to go and what to do is priceless. God is good company. But again, because my parents did well, because my grandparents did well, it never occurred to me that he wouldn't be good company. And I know that some of you, the idea of being alone with the creator of the universe, because so many people fail you, you have now rolled that failure onto him, is a much more frightening proposition. And before today, I did not understand it. Well, before last night, because it's the next morning. But when Shaquille O'Neal explained that, I got understanding of how much more difficult that is. Am I cutting us any slack? Because for my background, if I mess up, that makes my mess up 100 times worse than anybody who didn't have that background. So am I cutting us any slack? No, because there isn't time for it. There isn't time for it. Life is brief. Life is short. And if you have children around you, I think about this all the time. You only have so much time before they get locked into certain patterns, good or bad. If you value your own life in an economy that is changing rapidly, you only have so much time to get skills and get moving. Now, how much time there's going to be, common grace is very huge. If you're a Christian, special grace is very huge. But you know what else is happening to you? You can probably see them shining up there now, where the light is shining off. You're getting older, just like me. You must choose better in order to be received by better, in order to find better and have better find you. If you're waiting for better to bust through the foolery, even if it does, will you be ready to receive it? That's the question. And some of this has to do, just like John Moran is going to have to sit down for a significant amount of time and be in a new circle of people in order to pull out of this that he's in. So will you. So am I. So will I. I'm going to put the therapy and life coaching descriptions, and y'all know anybody's got a question. Okay, how is Jesus Christ going to help me? For real. I don't feel like he's done anything for me all this time. Well, we still gonna have to sit down and talk about, okay, what's the main problem for you though? That's one of the things that people don't want to hear. Okay, all that happened to you, How are you using it? How are you processing it? And where are you sinning? And now that is destroying your life, not what somebody did or didn't do. If John Morant does not pull out of this, it will not be because of mama or daddy. It will be because he chose to be out here on a contract where he's flashing weapons and he is simply not allowed to do that. That will be why he loses his career. It will not be anybody else's fault. Um, so everybody has to take responsibility for that. If you refuse that level of responsibility, God in Christ has no other plan to save you. And you will find that your therapist can't, your life coach can't, your friends can't, your family can't. Even some of you who are in church or in very serious religion. Nope. Till you take full responsibility for your life, can't nobody save you. Nobody. Well, God has chosen not to overwhelm your humanity and pull you out when you're not going to be responsible for knowing that you need to come out. Not going to happen. And this is the thing, people do get rescued at different times, pulled out of things. But see, it's real bad when you get rescued for foolery and you go right back. Because that makes people who do rescues look at you like, why did I even bother? Well, of course, when you mature, you realize you gave that person a chance to see another day and choose better that next day. And whether they did it or not, you have done your responsibility. But you got to mature for that. While a lot of people give up on the Black community in general. Because after a while, you just get tired. I'm 42 now. I'm not 32. I have a lot of responsibility, and I understand now being middle aged and understand being old enough to begin to understand what the elders talk about. I am tired. I have days like that now. This is about a year since I've had COVID, and COVID really brought that on. And pretty much recovered. I can do pretty much still whatever it is I want to do, but mentally, because I'm always having to be on, it's tiresome sometimes. But I know what I've been called to do. And even if on a particular day, all I do is make a video that some of you will listen to. Let me also say this in closing. This is the second close because I'm a Baptist preacher's daughter. There won't be three, though. I appreciate the 873 of you. Some of you came for the drags, but you stayed because you're ready to do the work. And I may be extending what I experienced under authority to you in a way that is not damaging to you, I hope. If I am damaging to you, I don't mean to. And I may not be the person to speak into your life. But for the 873, I would rather have 873 of you who want to be here and want this kind of content than 875,000 on some mess. To say nothing of 875 million. That's almost 3 times the size of the United States. I don't know how these people with 100 million subscribers even bother to do this, but that's also because I understand the depth of responsibility you have when you speak into people's lives. Because my parents understood it and my grandparents understood it. It means more to me that you are here. It means more to me that when you have all these other things that you could be listening to, you actually are choosing better. And because you're choosing better, better can find you. Y'all have a good day now. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.